Hi, welcome to PropertyHouseTrader. We're talking about the conveyance. We've been through the first part, and that's the preparation of the contract, and we've gone through that with Liz from Key 2 Conveyancing. Now the exciting thing that's happened is the property is sold. So we're going to go back to Liz and she'll tell us what happens now.
Now, last we spoke, Margaret, we were talking about exchange of contracts, being the point again in which both the buyer and the seller are legally bound to the contract. And the next big step in the conveyancing process is, of course, the settlement. Now, the contract will have set a settlement date, and the buyer and seller will be working towards that date. And I should just mention to you there that a lot of people do ask the question, is it possible to change the settlement date? My circumstances have changed, can I change the date? It is possible, but only if agreed to by both the buyer and the seller. So yes, it can be done, but it must be agreed to by both parties. Okay, so moving on from that, we'll have told our owners when the settlement date is going to take place. The settlement date is basically the date upon which the owner gets paid for their property in return for handing over the title to the property. So some really important things have to happen before then. Most or a lot of owners have mortgages on their properties, and it's a really important job of the conveyancer to contact the owner's mortgagee or the owner's bank and provide them with the information that they're going to need to make sure that they're going to be ready to turn up on the settlement date with the title deed. With no title deed, there won't be a settlement. So normally most banks have a certain form that they'll require the owners to fill out and sign, and we generally obtain those for our clients, fill them out, sign them and send them off to the banks with the due dates for settlement. And we will be in contact with the banks throughout that time before settlement and make sure that they are then booked in to turn up on the settlement day. Now, on the settlement day, the owner doesn't have to attend settlement. That's another really important question that they'll often ask, do I need to be there? Because normally they can't be there. Well, no, they're not required to be there. That's part of our job. That's what we do for them. So we'll arrange on the day for their bank to be there. We will be there. And normally the purchaser's conveyancer or a representative will be there for them. Now, in relation to money, because that's generally what it's all about. How am I going to get paid? What's going to happen? Before the settlement date, usually a settlement adjustment sheet is prepared. And what that does is it sets out for the owner the price that's been paid, less any deposit that the agent might be holding. And I should mention there that normally the agent will hold the deposit in their trust account until settlement takes place. Okay. So the settlement adjustment sheet will just be an adjustment of the sale price, less the deposit, plus an adjustment for any outgoings, and that's usually your council rates, your water rates, strata levies if applicable. And if the owner has paid any of those in advance, an adjustment will be made back in the owner's favour on the settlement day. If they're a little bit in arrears, cheques will be sent off from the settlement monies. So the adjustment sheet will be done, and then a list of cheques will be drawn from those monies. Now generally what will happen, of course, the bank has to be paid first. So we'll draw a cheque in favour of the bank. If there's no bank, the funds are usually going to the owner, but what will come out first are usually your fees. The fees are paid out of the settlement proceeds. That's your legal fees, your conveyancer's fees or your solicitor's fees, your agent's commission, and as I mentioned before, any outstanding outgoings. And then what happens on that settlement date, if there is money going directly to the owner, that can be banked for the owner on the day, and we'll take instructions from the owner as to what they'd like done with that money. And the agent's not allowed to release that deposit or the keys to the property until they are formally notified that settlement has taken place. So we would contact the agent, usually by fax and phone, and send to them what's called a written order on the agent, authorising them to release the deposit, and at the same time, hand in hand, of course, releasing keys. Now, an owner must keep their property insured in between the time of exchange and settlement. They're still the legal owner. The other thing they must do is they must maintain the property. So keep the lawns mowed, maintain the inside of the property. If it is damaged somehow between exchange and settlement, make sure that it's fixed. Now, a buyer will come in very close to the settlement date, even sometimes on the morning of the settlement date, and they'll do what's called a final inspection. The purpose of that is to make sure that the owner has done what they're obliged to do under that contract, that they have maintained it, that they have left the inclusions there, all of them. So in general summary, that's what happens on a settlement date. And overall, I think we've covered the really three important steps in the conveyancing transaction and given you a really basic outline of firstly marketing your property, what has to happen to put the property on the market, what happens when you accept an offer, in relation to exchange and the settlement. So I hope that's answered a lot of questions or given you a little bit of information or a lot of information about how the process works. Now, if any more information is needed, you could perhaps log on to our website, www.key2conveyancing.com.au, or of course contact us at the office on 02 6555 8788, and myself or my business partner Judy Klaus will be happy to answer any questions that you might have or that your clients might have. So thanks, Margaret, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Liz. That was great. Now, we've gone through the whole of the conveyancing process. It's just been an overview, and if you really want to know more, I really think that the best thing to do is to contact either your solicitor or a very good conveyancer. Liz has given you her details, and she's available pretty well at any time. See you next time at Property and House Trader.